and welcome in to Poke Bear episode 381, part of the CLNS Media Network. If you have time, please subscribe to our Bruins Ringside YouTube channel, where you have pretty much daily content between Poke the Bear, Bruins Beat with Evan Marinovsky, Pucks with Hags. We have you covered every step of the way this Bruins season, so follow along with us over at YouTube. And if you don't like YouTube, you don't want to see my ugly face, I get it. You can subscribe and follow along with us over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever else you get your hockey podcasts. This episode is also brought to you by PrizePicks, the best way to win cash this football season. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. My name is Conor Ryan, and once again, we are joined by the esteemed, the ever knowledgeable Ty Anderson of 98.5 The Sports Hub. Ty, how you doing?
There's something in his eye, Ty Anderson, right now.
The blind
oh my
Ty
God,
Anderson.
I can't see anything right now.
Yes.
No, I'm doing very well. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Want to once again wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. Hope everyone had a time to rest, relax, have a lot of stuffing, watch the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, all the good stuff that one does on Thanksgiving. So I hope everyone had some time to sit back and relax, and also watch the Boston Bruins. Hopefully everyone avoided watching the Black Friday game, which, yikes. But the Bruins were able to come back on Saturday, beat the Red Wings in a shootout. And Ty, when you kind of look at this recent stretch, I know it's been a while since we've been on this podcast, and with the schedule being as hectic as it is, a lot has happened since then. Mm-hmm. What's kind of your main takeaway from this stretch where they go to the Islanders, they win there on the road, lay an egg kind of on Black Friday, and then bounce back with a pretty strong effort in a pretty competitive, fun game on Saturday against Detroit?
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway is that they've probably eclipsed the point of injuries they can handle. And I say that basically saying that they can survive it so long as they get elite goaltending. And in both of their wins since Wednesday and Saturday, they've had elite goaltending from Jeremy Swayman. That has been the difference. That is why they won those games. And so I think if you look at, where they are right now, no Pastrnak, no McAvoy, I think we all agree that we entered the year saying that Pastrnak, Swayman, and McAvoy were your three most important pieces, right? Your best forward, your best defenseman, your best goaltender. And you're down your best forward and best defenseman right now. So your goaltender has to be your best player. Right now, he is your most expensive player. McAvoy is out, Pastrnak is out. So that makes Swayman the most expensive player on your roster, and he's got to play like it. And I think he's playing like it right now. And so I think that's my biggest takeaway, is that this is not sustainable unless you get otherworldly goaltending for the next couple of weeks, and then you're going to be okay.
Yeah, and I think you look at the way Swayman's been playing as of late, sure feels like he's back to being the guy we saw 2 years ago, where the Bruins saw a young goaltender who had all the makings of a future number one, a guy that's confident in his own abilities, a guy that, plays with a little bit of swagger. And I think you saw that both on Wednesday, where he, has a career high in saves against the Islanders on the road, and then stands tall against the Red Wings. I mean, he was money in that shootout. I was looking at all the guys that Detroit trots out, like how much skill they have there. It's like, geez, this is a murderer's row of guys you don't want to go up against in a shootout situation. Like gloves that Kane shot, turns aside to Brinket, all those types of players. Since he got shelled in that one game in October against Ottawa, Swayman's 8-2, .934 save percentage in the month of November. So to your point, yeah, the Bruins, the injuries they have right now, it's not sustainable. You're going to continuously accrue points unless Swayman's playing at this level. And he sure feels like the guy that the Bruins thought they were getting when they handed him that contract a year ago.
Yeah, I mean, he's been neck and neck, in my opinion, with, I would say, Wedgwood's had an incredible start to his year, but really for the last month or so, I think Vasilevsky and Swayman have just been incredible, right? And sure enough, they're both in the Atlantic Division, which is bad news for the Bruins, right? They're in and out of the playoffs every other day, it feels like. But this is the guy you paid, right? And this is the guy that we saw end the year in a positive. This is the guy we saw go to the Worlds and have a great run for Team USA. And so it does feel like he's put everything behind him. And it does feel like he's in that mind space, that mindset and that mental space that we saw in 2024 when he was a great goaltender for them. He was an all-star. He was in the playoffs. And so I really do feel like they are just like he's dialed in right now. The team in front of him, I think for the most part is stepping up with how they can right now. Like I think we're grossly underestimating how battered they are in defense on the right side right now. And your best option is Jonathan Aspero, moving up with the top pairing. Now they tinkered with that a little bit last night, but there's a lot of strain on Andrew Peak, who a year ago this time was your third pairing right shot D. He's had a good year. But I think
it was almost decapitated yesterday too. You almost lost another guy. What the hell was that?
Classic Fleet Center, right? That's TD Garden, baby. The boards are weird and the glass eats helmets now, apparently. So
or flattens check centers.
It's yeah, exactly. They deny dynasties, basically. No, I do think that he's just been so good, right? And I think the biggest thing, Connor, for me, is that game on the island. Guess what it was? It was his third game in a row. Mm-hmm. He hasn't been good in third games in a row, and he was good in that game. He was good on Saturday. The workload has increased, and he's remained elite. That is what is super important for this team, because I know, listen, Korpisalo wants to play more. I understand that. And I was saying you have to play Korpisalo more because Swayman's not good when you play him 3 times in 4 games or 3 games in a row. It seems like he's fixed that problem. And if he does, holy crap, look out. Now you have an elite number 1 goaltender.
Yeah. And I think you even look at, that game against the Islanders where it was his third game in a row, and both before the game and after the game, Marco Sturm mentioned like, hey, he's playing great right now and we have confidence in him. And I think he even echoed that Saturday after that win. Like the team, they are what they are right now as far as the injuries, how shorthanded, like they know that they're kind of swimming against the tide as far as what they have to do to consistently win games. But how much of a confidence boost is there, especially for a pretty battered D-corps, when you have a guy like Jeremy Swayman playing so well in net behind you, right? Like you almost have that extra security blanket, that extra bit of protection where even if there is a D zone gaff or two, you can kind of flush it right away because most likely Jeremy Swayman's making that stop. That's even what was echoed when he was on that heater in the playoffs, where that Bruins team was not a perfect squad, right? That was a Moneyball Bruins team, but they kept in those games. They beat Toronto in the first round and challenged Florida throughout that second round because you had the great equalizer in net. And so I think just the confidence for right now of Swayman playing that level, you're seeing that kind of bleed into their results. It feels like even when you look at the depth chart, you look at the warm-ups every game, you're like, oh man, like they're asking a lot of XYZ players. You still see Swayman in net, and you're like, no, they got a shot. And that's huge for a team right now as you're just trying to weather the storm, I think, at this point.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think, if you watch the third period of the game on Saturday, right, like they're outshot 13-4. They have breakdowns left and right, but it felt like Swayman was making those saves that, you saw them in 2024, right? When they would get overmatched by a team and it was like a patchwork defense, as you noted, like Swayman had that ability to calm things down, right? Like his poise when he has like a nasty glove save or, a great sprawling save and he covers it up and he gets up and he just skates to the corner and skates back and like, you can just feel the whole bench calming down, right? And that's sort of, I think, I remember talking to a player during that run that he was on, and I kind of said, like, what is he like for you when he's back there making those 10 bell saves and, things are spiraling out of control, but he's back there. And they're like, you can't stress how important that is for us in terms of like how it gets everyone to take a deep breath, calm down, and put that bad shift behind them or that ugly turnover behind them. Like that's what you're seeing from him right now. I feel like where they were really bad in that third period, but he makes 11 saves and some high quality looks. And you can almost feel like the rest of the team kind of be like, all right, bad shift, put it behind you. Like that's it. That's the mark of an elite goaltender. And I feel like that's where his game is at right now. And, I think, you mentioned that game in Ottawa. I feel like it maybe took that to happen to be like, all right, one more of those. And I'm sick of this shit. I don't want to deal with that anymore. And I feel like that's a real thing that's happened to him.
Yeah, no, and he's been playing great. And I think on the opposite side of that token, right, Jonas Corposalo kind of swimming against the tide as well, right? You look at, I mean, money puck. If you want to look at goals saved above expected, which feels like it's like the good barometer as far as like how a goaltender is dealing with just shot quality as opposed to the structure in front of him, right? Swayman, if you look at just money puck, he's first in the league at 19.4 goals saved above expected. Corposalo, he's 74th out of 78 goalies with a minus 5.9 goals saved above expected. So he's been fighting it. He's got an 875 save percentage so far this year. Again, he's had his moments where he's stood tall. I look at that game, the Chicago home opener, where he made some insane saves in that overtime period. He had a couple of key stops on the Rangers' first power play, I believe, on Friday. But still, I think when you look at how slim the margin for error for this team is, especially, you need more from your backup goaltender, I think, at this point. That's not saying you need a 9-14 backup goalie, but you need like a 901, right? Like you just need a little bit more, I think, from the guy that's following Swayman right now to help you string some of these wins together. I think that's what this team desperately needs is like a 3-game win streak just to start, getting some separation in these standings, I think.
Yeah, and so it's so hard, right? Because we've talked about Corposalo on this podcast before and how some nights like the numbers don't match up how well he played, right? Like that Chicago game, he finishes it with like an 875, but you're kind of going, no. He made some big saves in the third period and he made 2 big saves in overtime. So like situationally, he was good, right? And so his numbers sometimes don't tell the whole story. He's had 3 games in a row where he's been under 900. And, maybe he was good enough in the game in Anaheim, but I don't think he was good enough in the Ranger game. I don't like when you're that undermanned and when you're that shorthanded, you need like a Herculean performance. And fair or unfair, he's a $4 million backup. He's only on the books for 3 in Boston, but he's a $4 million goalie. And so that's what you need. If you have an $11 million tandem, like that's when you need to kind of step up there and help you out, much like Swayman did on Saturday night. And so that didn't really happen. And I understand it's a 5-on-3 for the Rangers, but can you not give up 2 goals in 45 seconds? Like, can you keep it at 1? Is that fair to ask? I feel like it is.
And then you're chasing a 1-goal game in the third period, right? If you just even give up one of those goals on the power play.
No, exactly. And so it's really frustrating because I just feel like some of the things that haunted Corposalo in Ottawa have hurt him this year, where he's back to giving up goals on the first or second shot of the game. He's back to kind of just not giving you enough. Like he battles, but like the hole is almost dug too deep. And then you're like, all right, now we're really battling back. And so meanwhile, you got 2 guys in the minors that are putting up dueling 942s. And so you look at that and you go, all right, what do you do here? It's this team, if they're going to add, right? If they're going to add, they're going to have to clear money. I don't know the money they clear. I don't know it. Like, they don't have a lot of guys that you look at and say, oh, yeah, you're going to move them. Corposalo is probably one of the top 3, though, that you look at. And you say, maybe you can move that money. I think it's Corposalo, I think it's Lohrei, and I think it's probably Middlestad. Like, those are 3 guys that I think if they're moving somebody, that's the money they want to move. But Corposalo's got to give you more. He just does. Even if you don't believe in the fancy stats, guys, like you mentioned, the expected goals, the saved above average, all that. He's 5th worst save percentage among the 39 goalies that have played at least 10 games. Like, you need more out of him. You just do. And so I just feel like you want that. Remember that around this time last year, he went on that little hut run where he had like back-to-back shutouts or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, you desperately need something like that to kind of get you feeling more comfortable, because you are going to need him. You're going to need him, or you're going to need a backup goalie in general. Like, you can't, we're just talking about Swayman, right? You can't play him 60 games because you just can't, right? Like, the schedule's too weird. Swayman might be playing in the Olympics at this rate for Team USA. Like, you got to keep those games down. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just think you got to get more out of Corposalo here.
Yeah, no, and I agree. Like, you look at just the the margin for error, where if you are the Bruins, you're trying to maximize your talent on this team and also maximize cap space. That's where the question is, to your point. If you got 11 million goaltender rotation, how much different would it be if you had it, shaved down to, 9 million or 9.5 if it's just one of the DPHROs, or I can never pronounce his name. I'm very sorry to our good friend. I call him Travis Zajac because I know it kind of sounds somewhat to that, but it's not. I forget how to actually pronounce his name, but if it's one,
I'm not.
Something like that.
I'm honestly not sure because I think I didn't see him in the preseason. I was in Chicago when he was on the team, so I was like, I didn't get the chance to meet him and say like, hey, how do you say your name, by the way?
Right, exactly. So if it's one of those guys, right, like one, you'd save the cap space, and it also comes down to, can one of those guys be better than an 875 Zajac? That would make sense.
Zajac. Yeah,
Great.
Zajac. According to the Bruins, that's what they say.
Yeah. So I mean, you look at, if one of those guys comes in and can be better than an 875 goalie, like, can they do that? It's kind of the same thing with, like, you look at what Brendan Bussey's doing with Carolina, and I get, like, Carolina's a very structured team, like, that's an easier runway, I think, for a goalie, but, like, how much of a lift would it be if just a DPH or something like that gives you 895 save percentage? You probably want more, but, like, better than what Korpisalo is, and you're saving cap space along the way. So I agree. You desperately need, like, Korpisalo to start figuring things out, because that is one of the areas where the Bruins could make some tweaks, especially if it opens up more cap space down the road. And if all of a sudden one of those guys hits, like one of your Providence goalies, and you can go into next year with like a backup making minimal money, that's pretty good. That's all of a sudden you're in a pretty good spot as far as just utilizing asset management, as opposed to where it is right now, where got 11 million tied up to the goaltending, a great number one, but again, you just need a little bit more from your backup, I think, moving forward.
Right. And I don't want to put it all on the goaltending, but if you look at the teams that are like the bona fide great teams in the NHL, I think with the exception of maybe, maybe a couple, they all have pretty stable goaltending situations, right? Like, and they have two guys that they can rely on because this is what the schedule is dictating, like Colorado, I think. They're a credible team, right? And we're talking about Nate McKinnon and Cale Makar, Turi Lehkonen, like all these guys have been fantastic, right? But they got Wedgwood and Blackwood, who've been phenomenal for them all year long, right? And that's what the Bruins, when you have a tandem that's making $11 million combined, over $11 million, that's what you're hoping for. You're hoping that you're essentially putting out a number one goaltender every night, which they have with one guy, but not the other, right? And Korpisalo's never going to be perfect, but I think we all agree that, I think we said it in a season preview podcast, like, give me a 905 and I'm happy. Like, give me a 905. Like, an 875, not going to get it done. I mean, that's kind of what derailed the Bruins in 16-17, where it was Zane McIntyre and Hudobin. And Hudobin was playing so bad they waved him down at Providence. He got his game in order, and then they fired Claude Julien, and they bring in Bruce Cassidy. They bring up Hudobin. And then Hudobin catches fire at the end of the year. But like for the first half of the season, their backups were posting like an 880, an 870. Like they weren't getting enough, and they had to play Tuukka a lot. And so like that's something that, if this team is probably close to that 16-17 team where they are, going to be a wild card team or third place their division, you're going to need quality starts out of your number two. And right now, I don't think they're getting enough of them. Out of Korpisalo to this point right now.
Yeah, no, I agree. You need a little bit more. So we'll see if whether it's in Detroit or against St. Louis moving forward, whenever Korpisalo draws back in, how we can respond moving forward. Ty, we're going to talk a little bit more about injuries hitting this team, a few guys that are continuing to step up for the Bruins during this shorthanded stretch. But before we do that, let's take a quick break here from our good friends over at Prize Picks. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. It's the holiday season, the best time of the year for sports, bowl games, basketball matchups, playoff pushes. It's all happening at once. While you and I are out here making decisions every day, what gifts to buy, what to eat, which game to watch, there's only one place where it feels good to be right, and that's Prize Picks. There's plenty of new faces in New England, but it looks like names like Milton Williams, Steph Diggs, and Trayvon Henderson are heating up as we get into some colder weather. And if you want to make your pick on which players are about to go off on the gridiron, you have to go with Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to turn your sports knowledge into cash. With millions of members, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in. On PrizePicks, how you play is up to you. If you want flexibility, choose Flex Play, where you can get paid even if one of your picks misses. And if you want the biggest payouts, go for the Power Play. No matter your play, PrizePicks is a great way to put your takes to the test. PrizePicks now has early payouts. If your lineup gets off to a hot start, you may now have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. Is your fantasy season already over? My team personally is cooked. But with PrizePicks, I don't have to wait until next year's draft. PrizePicks lets you play fantasy football every week, pick your favorite players, and win when they hit their projections every week. No draft required. And it's not just football. On PrizePicks, you can mix and match player projections from different sports, combine your favorite football players with players from basketball, hockey, esports, and much more. There's no shortage of ways to participate in PrizePicks. This week, I'm going to look at the board. I'm going to cover all my bases. I've got Jaylen Brown for more than 30 points, and I'm all in on Drake May against the Giants. I'm taking the QB for more than 300 passing yards in Week 13 against New York. So download the PrizePicks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS on the PrizePicks app to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. Shout out once again to our good friends over at PrizePicks. Ty, when you look at the state of this team, and especially the injury bug, we know Charlie McAvoy is still sidelined. A positive step forward that he was at least skating on Saturday morning. So still, I think, has a long way to go before he's cleared or anything like that, beyond just the messed up jaw. The fact that he's also lost a ton of weight. I don't know how much Kowloon he was able to eat with his father-in-law on Thanksgiving, but obviously a lot that he has to do just to even get back in the realm of being available for game action moving forward. But for the more pressing issue right now, has to be David Pastrnak, missing 2 games in a row after not missing a game since the end of the 21-22 season, I believe. So a guy that has been durable, a guy that when he does miss his games, is a bit of a red flag. So what were you going to say?
I don't even think I think the last game he missed, I don't even think was necessarily injury related. I think that was that game against Toronto where they brought up like the entire Bruins team to play the Maple Leafs because the game meant nothing. And they were locked into that game against the series against Carolina. So I feel like the last time he missed a game, it was just the Bruins scratching their entire roster, not taking any chances with getting hurt before the playoffs. So he's been a model of health, and that's what is most, I don't want to say upsetting because that's way too dramatic, but like that's what you're like, oh, he's never been hurt before. You haven't experienced this in a long time, it feels like, for the Boston Bruins.
Yeah, and I think when you look at the injury that everyone's identified now, where you see it at the final minutes of that game on Wednesday, where he kind of pushes off there. I don't know if it's a groin or what it is, but that's one where even if it is a day-to-day thing, not great, especially for a guy that is obviously, we don't have to talk all that much about how important David Pastrnak is to the Bruins, but that's one where you hope he's able to come back in a timely fashion, healthy, most importantly. You don't want him to be something that's nagging and bothering him for an extended stretch, and it really saps away some of his talent level, because if this team is going to exceed expectations and be a competitive team, you have to rely on your cheat code on offense in David Pastrnak. Morgan Geeky's doing his best, but you can't rely on him every single night, even though he's trying to dispel that narrative. You need David Pastrnak back and playing at a high level moving forward.
Yeah, I think you look at their these last 2 games, like 3 out of the last 4 goals have been scored by Morgan Geeky. Yeah. I think Friday kind of highlighted how difficult it is without Morgan Geeky and without David Pastrnak. Rather, their best offense was really on point shots and hoping for a tip. Right, like it becomes very formulaic. It becomes very difficult. Now you can score goals the ugly way. They've done it before. They can do it again. But you don't have that game breaking. All it takes is one bounce, the puck's going the other way, and boom, you have a goal. Like, because that's like they weren't playing well on Friday. We can all agree, right? Like they have 12 shots through 40 minutes. But what if over those 40 minutes you get one bounce and David Pastrnak's off to the races and he goes top shelf on Igor Shesterkin? Now there's life in the building. There's life on the bench. There's more pep in your step. Like that's what makes players like him so valuable, is beyond the point production. It's that they can turn nothing into something in the blink of an eye. And now the whole game is flipped upside down, right? Like that. And that's why He's an elite talent. That's what makes him an elite player in this league. And so when you don't have that, it becomes more of a grind, right? And it looked like on Saturday, it looked like they weren't going to be able to get to that game once again. The first period, the Red Wings played with such high tempo, right, that the Bruins really couldn't get to their grind game because Detroit wasn't allowing it. Detroit was playing really fast hockey, and the Bruins were late to arrive physically in terms of dictating the pace of play in that way. Now, the Catholic fight on Cider really flipped things on its head there, but it was looking like it was being more of the same for the Bruins. And so, that's going to be the challenge for them. I think teams know that without Pastrnak, if you play up tempo against this Bruins team, you're probably going to be okay most of the time. They don't have a lot of guys that can keep up speed wise. And so that's going to be the challenge, I think, without David Pastrnak, is dictating the pace of play the way the Bruins want to, because that is something that this team is not really built to do, is play that go, go, go style of hockey.
Yeah, without a doubt. And even by that same token, as far as the speed, you're still, I think, clearly missing a guy like Victor Arvidsson, a guy who at the start of the year, you're like, is this guy cooked, right? Like, still got the legs, but the shot's not there. But, over that 2-week stretch before he goes down with the injury was a key piece for your team that I think you really missed kind of his speed and what he's provided. Like, you're definitely missing a quick strike offense with obviously Pastrnak out, but even a guy like Arvidsson. I know that Arvidsson skated before practice on Saturday as well. I don't know if his timeline has changed at all, but that's also a guy that you desperately need back, because it's very funny when you look at where we were in September, looking at this roster and being like, man, who's going to step up now? And now it's almost like, oh, thank God Middleset's back. When's Arvidsson getting back? Like, you're seeing all these guys that have exceeded expectations for a team that, as disjointed as the roster has been, you've seen certain guys click, especially I think that second line before they all got injured. And you just desperately need some of that secondary scoring back, because you can't just rely on the Jeannot, Minton, Catholic line to be the team bringing you energy throughout this stretch here. You need more of these healthy guys getting back. And without Pastrnak and Arvidsson, you're desperately missing some of your top snipers for sure.
Yeah, and listen, credit to Casey Middlestat for jumping back into the lineup without a practice, right? And credit to Pavel Zacha for playing at less than 100% clearly. They kept him away from faceoffs all night, right? And then Elias Lindholm takes a penalty in overtime, and Zacha wants to be out there. He wants to take the faceoffs despite, not taking them all night and clearly being limited by a upper body injury rather. And he takes the faceoffs. He grinds out what's basically like the full 2-minute kill, almost, like just the way he was out there. And they had other guys they could put in that spot, but Zacha wanted to be that guy. And so, I asked Sturm about that after the game, and he said, like, he said that he had to thank Middlestat for doing what he did on Friday, basically jumping in and, at less than 100%, not playing for a few weeks. And, he does it, and he plays well. He scores a goal. I thought he was good on Saturday night as well. And so guys want to contribute. Guys want to step up without Pastrnak, without McAvoy. And it really speaks to, how this team is. I feel like a year ago, guys were almost disengaged because of how bad the team was. And
here we go again, right?
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah. And they were sometimes they were letting pride get in the way of the team, right? Like we suck, we can't do anything right. And I look like shit right now. And I don't like that for me. I feel like guys this year are much more like, they understand that they're up against it, right? In terms of like the projections outside of their room, but they want to step up. They want to have a good game. They want to go above and beyond for the first year head coach. And I think that's been very noticeable, is that just the will on this team is a lot higher than it was a year ago. And that's where, I think the Bruins were right. Like, the front office was right saying, we want to be a harder out. They have built a team that is a harder out. The mentality is totally different this year than it was a year ago. Even some of the same guys that are still with this team, it just feels like their mentality is a lot different than it was last year.
Yeah, a lot more swagger, it feels like, right? A lot more of, I think it goes back to, how last year's team had such a identity crisis, or they didn't even have an identity, where it's not like when your game's not going your way, if you individually are struggling or anything like that, you don't have an identity to lean back on, like, well, we can play our game, right? We can stick to our principles. We can do all these sorts of things to help kind of right the ship. Last year's team was like just float down into the ocean. They didn't have anything like way or principles they could lean on. And this team very much, I think, has that like, hey, we're not the most talented team, but fuck it, right? We're going to like land our hits. We're going to punch you in the mouth, and you can try to keep up with us because we're going to grind you down. And we got a great goaltender that can keep us afloat. So, yeah, it's very much the piss and vinegar Bruins has been there. And I think even look at the game on Saturday, right? Like, yeah, Detroit outskating you in the first, and then Kastelik uses Mo Sider's face as a punching bag. You had Janot landing hits, and like they grinded you down, and you had your big guns keep you afloat, Swayman and Geeky. And is it sustainable? No, but you're winning games that way. And I think you're seeing, a lot of guys buy into it. I know Craig Button's probably in shambles that Casey Mittelstadt is grinding through an injury, coming back early to help out his team. But I think you're just seeing a lot of that buy-in. I think that's promising to see for a team that, yeah, maybe they don't have the most talent, but they're competitive. They're playing for each other. Even before the game kind of went off the rails at the very end of that Rangers game, it felt like they were clawing back into that one as well, right? Like they don't let games snowball away from them. Even down 4-0 to the Rangers, they made it interesting. So I think it's encouraging to see from a team that I think knows how they have to play. It doesn't mean they're going to execute it every night, but they kind of have the script, right? And they can kind of stick to it. You have guys buying in that want to be physical, want to make an impact, want to take advantage of the opportunity in front of them. And I think you're seeing that kind of play out consistently this year, which I think is so huge for this team.
Yeah, and I would say since they ended the losing streak, rather, they've been good at bouncing back. That's once they put that 6-game losing streak behind them. When they had a bad game, they typically win the next game out. They've been pretty good at just finding a way to get results, right? Like I think that game on Saturday was a really great example of just finding a way to get a result. Like they survived a heavy storm from Detroit in the third period. And even in the shootout, like, I'm not going to lie to you, hand up, I was expecting them to lose because you see that lineup that you mentioned, Raymond, DeBrincat, Patrick Kane. You're like, okay, they might score 3 in a row. Like they got those kind of guys in their lineup. Like, come on now. But they find a way, right? And that is how this team is going to kind of have to operate. I've always used the term survivalist team. Like they're a survivalist kind of team. Like just find a way to get points, find a way to get the result. And you see what happens. And I feel like they have, like, what's different about this team versus last year is that I think last year's team didn't have confidence in any one area, right? Like they were bad on the PK, they were bad 5-on-5, they were bad on the power play, they were bad in overtime, they were bad in the shootout. They didn't have anything they could hang their hat on and go, well, we're good at this. Like, what were they good at? They were good at Pastrnak and Geeky. That was it. That was a year ago. This year, they've had an elite power play for much of the season. They've had great PK. They've been great in overtimes. So situationally, I just think there's more confidence. There's more swagger, as you put it, that they can be put in situation X, Y, and Z and feel confident. Whereas a year ago, they didn't feel confident in any situation. And I think that's coaching, right? That's attitude. That is guys wanting to be in there, wanting to make an impact. And why do you feel that way? Because you have confidence. And I think listen, is it sustainable? We're going to have to wait and see, right? Like a lot of models still don't like the Boston Bruins in terms of making the playoffs, but your models don't take into account swagger and they don't take into account confidence. They don't take into account that, that attitude of, yeah, we'll be fine. We've done this before. We'll do this again. And that's what they have right now. This is where the math can sometimes fool you. It really can.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah. And it's been fun to watch this team, I think, so far this year. They're scrappy. They've got other guys stepping up. It's not as far as, you look at the big guns that have been key for, yes, as Ryan says, what is the P&V metric? We are still trying to tabulate the actual stats for it. But when you see the guys that are stepping up beyond just the Pasternaks, Geekies, Swaymans, it's been, I think if you're a Bruins fan, especially coming off of last year, it's a team that's worth your time, I think, right? Like they work, they compete, they're fun to watch. You're seeing younger guys step up. You're seeing, I think, other players that whenever the Bruins come out of this rebuild, retool, whatever it may be, you're already seeing, I think, a lot of guys that are establishing themselves as part of that winning equation moving forward, which I think is encouraging. And there was another comment I saw, Ty, I think about 15 minutes ago, Merkulov got assigned back down to Providence. So I do wonder what that means as far as is someone else getting called up? Is Arvidsson coming back? That also is something worth keeping tabs on because obviously I know he was scratched for VL on Saturday, but if even a guy like Arvidsson is getting closer or something like that, or they're changing things around, that'd also be a welcome addition.
Yeah, the Bruins are saying that there's still no timeline on Arvidsson. They were pretty adamant that like he's not close just yet. But they do get VL back on Saturday night. So they did have between Tufty and Vial, like they had enough to go there. Yeah, it's a great question. I like Arvidsson. Given how important he is and given how weird that injury looked, I'm cool to take my time with him, because you don't want him coming back and then going back out. But yeah, he could be next to come back, and that'd be a big boost for this team. Yeah, Merkulov, I don't get. I don't get it. I don't get what I. So you call him up. He's a left shot. He's played left wing all year. You call him up to play right wing. Why? Like what are we doing here? That didn't make any damn sense to me. Whatever. It's over now. He's back in Providence, but I feel like, he kind of is what he is at this point. I think he's a quad A player who doesn't process the game fast enough at the NHL level. And I don't think you're doing him any favors by having him play right wing when he's playing left wing in the minors. That's just, that's my own feeling on it. But another look at him, another kind of nothing burger kind of game. And we'll see if we see him again this year.
Yep. Moving forward, we'll see what the next step is, especially on Monday, where there should be hopefully a lot of updates as far as the multiple guys that are banged up, and we'll get a little bit more clarity moving forward.
I think if anything, Merkulov going down to Providence might be a positive sign for Pasternak. Who did skate on Friday. He did skate on Friday morning before the game. They didn't have a morning skate or anything like that, but he was out there, and I think with David Pasternak, like they will take him at 80%. Over Arvidsson at 80%, if that makes sense. I think that logic might be a little backwards because I don't want to risk a setback with a guy like 88, but his track record of playing, 270 games in a row, like kind of allows you to be more like, well, we trust him that he knows what he's doing here.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll see what the updates are on Monday. Ty, before we wrap things up, again, want to give a shout out to the CLNS Media Network. Again, if you have time, please subscribe to the Bruins Rinkside YouTube channel. Pretty much daily content between Poke the Bear, Bruins Beat, Pucks with Hags. We have you covered every step of the way this Bruins season. So please subscribe over at YouTube and follow us over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever else you get your hockey podcasts. And it's not just Bruins over at CLNS. You can also subscribe to Patriots Press Pass, Celtics All Access. The whole crew over at CLNS does a phenomenal job. Can be updated every single day for all the happenings going on with the Patriots and Celtics. So please subscribe to all of the various channels run by the CLNS Media Network. Ty, as we wrap things up, and you look at guys that are stepping up, especially with players being hurt, I want to give a shout out to Alex Steves, who I think you've seen other guys. You've seen guys like Kusendinov step up and the opportunities that a guy like Marco Sturm has given him. But Steves being a guy that was a productive AHL player, never got a chance really with Toronto. And then he kind of just plays his game. He adjusts to what is asked of him, right? Like he's a guy that has the profile of being a 30-goal scorer in the AHL. Comes up in his first couple of games, like leads the team in hits, I think 3 out of his first 4 games, right? Like contributes on the PK. Obviously has that shorthanded goal as part of a 2-goal effort on Long Island. And I think he had another pretty good game on Saturday against Detroit, right? Draws a penalty, I believe. Like seems like he's a guy that is really kind of solidifying his spot as, a reliable Swiss Army knife for the Bruins that, maybe he's more of a bottom 6 guy, but he's carving out a spot for this team. And I think clearly Marco Sturm, he's earning Marco Sturm's trust moving forward here. So I think he's a guy that on a team that's had a lot of guys step up and take advantage of an opportunity in front of them, I think he deserves a stick tap for really kind of, solidifying his spot as of late.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's a lock now, I think, for the roster. I don't think he's going to get sent back down to the minors. I do think this is a player who has proven capable of contributing in a top 6 role or a bottom 6 role. He might be your third line winger, once this team is if and when this team is fully healthy. You move Kastelik back down to the 4th line and you have Steves there with Jeannot and Minton. And so he's been a guy who just gets it, right? Like some guys, like they come up and you get to tailor the minutes for them and the role for them. I think Matej Blumel's an example of that, where you look at him and you say, we're going to get something out of him, or if we get something out of him, it's going to be in a top 6 role and power play 1. Whereas Steve's, they say, we can put him anywhere and he's going to give us the same kind of motor, the same kind of energy, the same kind of know-how all over the lineup. And I think those are the players that like the Bruins have been really good at identifying under Don Sweeney. Go back to Riley Nash, go back to Tim Schaller. They have been Joachim Nordstrom, even like guys that can move up and down your lineup, give you the same effort, whether it's line 1 or line 4. And those players are valuable. Tomáš Nosek's a great example of that as well, I think, where situationally they're okay anywhere, right? And so I think that with Steve's, like, you look at him on Friday, he had a great game. He didn't have results. He had a great game, I thought, on Friday. He was constantly creating. You look at him last night, he should have drawn 2 penalties. He draws 1. He hits the crossbar on a great one-timer in the first period. Like, he's been all over the ice. He has been all over the ice. They're incorporating him into the PK, which I think is huge because you can never have enough killers on this team when they take 1 billion penalties a game. And he's been good on the PK. That's most important. He's been good there. So he has carved out, in my opinion, a full-time role on this team and in this lineup right now.
Yeah, he deserves a lot of credit for a guy that, again, it's not easy to go from what your profile is as an AHL, like top 6 scoring forward, right, to then adjust to different roles on the fly. And he's done it seamlessly. So I think he deserves a whole bunch of credit for, rolling with the punches of what's required to, plant your flag at the NHL level and then build up into it. Like, he might be a bottom 6 guy right now, but like maybe he expands his role moving forward. Maybe he's a guy that you pencil in next year as your 3rd line guy and gives you, 14 goals or something like that, right? But it's all about staking your claim right away, finding a role on a team, ingratiating yourself to a coach to build that trust. And I think he's done that so far. That's the template I think a lot of players need to follow as far as how they can, get up to the NHL and stick around. And I think he deserves a lot of credit for it. It ain't easy to kind of change your identity and how you play on the fly like that, but he's done it so far.
Yeah, and think about guys that like they've taken similar kind of chances on over the years, right? Like think about guys like Jason Megna or Anthony Richard or who was the other one? Vinny Lettieri. Like they come up and you're like, oh, okay, sure, that's fine. Like he's already eclipsed those players in terms of like NHL impact. Being a tweener, but getting a chance up here and making it count. Like he's already been better than those players here in Boston. And I understand that's not like a huge list of, or challenge be better than those guys. But like, there's so many of those guys that cycle through a franchise. Like I think about Max Jones and Riley Tufte a year ago, where they come up and you're like, okay, they've been good in the minors and their 1st round picks. Like maybe they'll be something. And they really weren't. And so I think with guys like Steve's, like opportunity is everything. And really being a Swiss Army knife is super valuable. And I think Steve's like, I've been impressed with the PK. Like I mentioned it earlier, but like the PK contributions have been fantastic. And so that's something that, again, you're just building your repertoire, you're building your resume, it's like, I got this skill, I got that skill, and I can do this. And if you're a coach, you're like, oh my God, where you been my whole life? You love those kind of players. And he's looking like that kind of guy.
Yep, no, without a doubt. So he deserves a lot of credit.
Kudos to their, whoever it is for them that does their AHL scouting and finds these guys that are kind of like, they're the perfect tweener where you don't know if they're an NHLer or an AHLer, but they have a skill set that you can use. Like they deserve a lot of credit, in my opinion. Whoever that is that's doing that for them in the minors has been really good at finding those kind of players. Again, going back to Tim Schaller, who I think is probably the best example of that, a guy who didn't have a ton of NHL run, but was a player that you looked at and said, you can use this guy. Yeah. And he was. At one point, he was a 2nd line player for the Boston Bruins and was actually pretty decent in that role.
Yeah. The Bruins just got to find those granite guys, right? You got like, I know Steve's kind of was born in Minnesota, but grew up, his childhood was up in New Hampshire as well. So they got to find more of those granite men up there.
Yeah. That is actually a great point. New Hampshire is the real key. That's the thing they got to focus in on.
Exactly. And as we wrap this one up as well, just as a quick note, shout out to the Bruins pro scouting staff because they found Morgan Geekie, who at this point, like, yeah, he's going to score like 45 goals.
Yeah.
I don't know if you delve too much into it, but it is nuts at this point. Like, yeah, he's a 40 goal scorer who I did not see this one come. I thought there's a good chance he could be a 25 to 30 goal scorer, but I don't know, man. It's nuts right now what he's doing. Yeah.
I thought he had a great quote. He had a great quote after the game on Saturday where he was asked about tying Nathan McKinnon again. And it was like, how do you feel about that? He's like, I'm not supposed to be here. Like, he's like, I'm not supposed to be here, and think about it, right? Like the last four guys in Bruins franchise history to have 20 goals in the first 27 games of the season. Geekie joined that club on Saturday. David Pastrnak, Cam Neely, Peter McNabb, and Phil Esposito. Like, think about that club that you're in. That's a pretty damn good club, right? And it's now been a calendar year of him being this player. At a certain point, we have to acknowledge that he might just be this player. And, this is more than a hot month. It's more than a hot 4 months. It's been a hot calendar year. It's been a whole year now. And so I just feel like what makes him so unique, we've talked about this before, is just the way he scores goals. It's net front. It's from distance. It's one-timers. It is between the circles. Like, he is not a one-trick pony. This is a player who, and by the way, now he's scoring without David Pastrnak. So he's putting that theory to bed as well. And so, like, this is just who he is at a certain point. And I think, the Bruins have struck gold here. I mean, it's unbelievable the way that Seattle non-tendered the guy. They just non-tendered him. And it's just like, now he's filling your lap and you might have a piece here. I wouldn't say might, you do have a piece here for your future.
Yeah, no, it's been huge. And as you said, when I talked to him on Wednesday about, does he still read the criticism and all those things? Because I was like, yeah, it's got to imagine it's lightened up a little bit. He said, oh, no, I still read everything. And people call me a pasta merchant. Then he scores 3 goals with him out of the lineup in the last 2 games. So he's been unbelievable. I don't know what else there's really to say about him, but I don't see the drop off coming anytime soon for a guy. And if you're the Bruins and you are in this retool, and this guy falls into your lap and is a top 6 legitimate player that even if next year he's not a 50-goal guy, I'll put him in for 30 goals moving forward. That's a pretty damn good player you have. So he's been just phenomenal and doesn't seem like he's slowing up anytime soon, which is huge for the Bruins.
And I got to say, like, I take the T to go to Bruins games. I try to do that. I got to tell you, green line, lot of geeky jerseys, man. I couldn't believe it. Usually I'm used to seeing the Pasta, the Bergeron, the Marchand, the Swayman. I saw like 5 to 10 geeky jerseys yesterday outside the arena, and I was like, damn, that's how you know that, like, you got something here, is that now you're seeing your jerseys, everywhere you look. And so, I mean, people are buying in, and why shouldn't they? He's been this good for so long, and I think that, it's really impressive the way that he's been able to just be so unique and versatile in terms of how he scores his goals. That's what's been super impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. Mr. Poe, thank you very much for the donation. And yeah, as far as getting something for Korpisalo, maybe the Oilers call in a little bit later, but I think you need Korpisalo to play a little bit better for them to take him. But
can they even afford him? Can they
That's
afford
also
him?
true. Yeah.
I don't know.
We talk about the Oilers and the fact that they let, DPH and all these guys sneak by them on waivers. Like, that is a team that just, I know they shut out Seattle, another great team that let 50 goal scorer Morgan Geekie walk out the door, but that team deserves to rot because I can't stand the Oilers. It's such a bootleg ass team that is just propped up by 2 generational talents. But
yeah,
this is our Oilers minute of how much we hate the Oilers. But
I don't want them to ever win a Stanley Cup while ignoring goaltending. I think it's such an affront to everything I believe in as a hockey fan and as a hockey writer. I think you have to prioritize goaltending. I think you have to prioritize having a more complete team. The Oilers are an affront to nature. I do not like them. I do not respect them, and I want them to never win a Stanley Cup. So that's how I feel.
Yes, absolutely. No, I think we're all in the same. I think we're all in the same boat there, Ty. Ty, as we get ready to let you go, where can we read your stuff? Where can we hear you on the airwaves? All that good stuff.
Yeah, you can find me at 985sportshub.com, and you can read my work all there, and you can hear me on the radio there every Saturday morning, 9 to 11 a.m. The Shaws and Star Market Hockey Show. Myself, Bob Beers, Ryan Johnston, the voices of the Boston Bruins Radio Network. We did a show yesterday. It was awesome. Ryan was back in studio, which was great because it wasn't just me solo and riffing for 2 hours, which I don't mind doing, but I don't love it either. But you can find me there. And next week we'll have Bob Beers in studio for the full show. So that'll be great. One of the best hockey minds in the business. He's so good at analyzing games. So that's where you can find me. How about yourself?
Yeah, you can read my stuff over at the Boston Globe and Boston.com. We have covered every step of the way this Bruins season. We're just on a road trip down to Long Island. It was great being on the road, getting some stories, working on a few features as well that I'm excited to knock out in the next couple of weeks. So you can read all my stuff over there on those two sites. Please subscribe over there. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, X, whatever it's called these days, you can at Conor Ryan _93. Ty, thank you once again for joining us for episode 381 of Poke the Bear. Again, if you have time, please subscribe to our Bruins Ringside YouTube channel as part of the CLNS Media Network. And again, this episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the best way to win cash this football season. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. My name is Conor Ryan. That is Ty Anderson. You fans have a great rest of your week.